All right, man. I got the perfect movie for us to watch this week.
Okay, great. Does it involve the multiverse?
It does.
Son of a bitch. Welcome back to the Out of Touch podcast. I'm Chris, that's Bill, and today we are watching Turtles Forever, the finale to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2003, I guess.
Yes, I don't think it was intended to be that. I think it just started out primarily as the 25th anniversary celebration movie for the Ninja Turtles. And because of the sale to Viacom Nickelodeon, it just became the finale to the 03 show.
Weird. You know, I didn't know that this was made on the heels of the Viacom buying the Turtles property.
It was one of the last things made before the sale became like finalized. Like, I think it had already been announced, and then this was sort of like almost like the farewell of the era before that.
Okay.
It almost acts like a swan song to all of that. It's weird.
Yeah, it is interesting. So, yeah, this is Turtles Forever. It is a crossover between the 2003 Ninja Turtles with the 1987 Ninja Turtles, or 86? Whenever
87.
87.
With a special bonus surprise crossover towards the end.
Yes, which we'll get into. So, Bill, what did you think of Turtles Forever?
I mean, when this first debuted, I freaking loved it. Because this is the first time we'd seen the original cartoon Turtles brought back. They've since been brought back in numerous forms, comics, video games, a couple times in the 2012 cartoon with the actual original voice actors.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about that momentarily. But just seeing them look like that again was pretty fun. It was like a nostalgic thrill. And this movie was kind of bittersweet too, because it was the farewell to the 2003 show, which, especially in its like first 4 to 5 seasons, was really freaking good.
Yeah.
Like really good.
Yeah, the 2003 Turtle show was like such a surprise because it kind of came out at a time where more or less Ninja Turtles were kind of like dead, I guess.
Yeah, they were.
Know?
There was like a period where the Image comic series ended in 1999. The live action show got canned in about 97. It only lasted the one season. And then there was just nothing for like a good year or two before comics started again at the end of 2001. And then like 2 years later, this show premiered in 2003.
Yeah, I remember watching, Ninja Turtles again, and I remember seeing this show and being like, oh, like, I guess they're going to take it a little more seriously. They all have Batman eyes now, like, all the time. But I remember the thing that, like, kind of, like, changed the show for me was, like, their, like, first, or maybe it's the second encounter with the Shredder, which, they fight him on a rooftop, which is awesome, and then Leonardo just cuts his head off, and it's like, holy shit!
Well, you've kind of blended a couple different things together, because especially in the first season, there's a lot of stuff from the original Mirage comics. They have their first big rooftop battle with the Shredder that ends up him getting like knocked off the building, as he's prone to.
Yeah.
But then they do the whole Leo gets ambushed, thrown into the April's apartment, gets burnt down thing, and then when they do their whole return to New York, that's when the head gets cut off.
Right. Okay. I guess it was like more of like a season finale thing, but I just remember seeing that moment and being like, are you serious? He just like decapitated Shredder. And then of course you get the little ending where, he picks up the helmet and you're like, oh shit, he's like a demon. Like, what the hell's up with Shredder? And then you find out he's like weird Utron Shredder, which... Utrom.
Yeah.
Which does work. I think when it first happened, I was kind of like, what? Shredder's Krang now? That's weird.
And it was jarring. I think at this point I'm just kind of used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, I had read the comic where that happened, where Leo cut Shredder's head off, and I was like, there's no way that's happening. There's no... What the... Can they do that?
They just did it on the Fox box of all things.
Oh God, the Fox box.
Yeah, I think this was after Fox Kids.
Yes,
so,
it was. It was rebranded as the Fox box, and this was debuted shortly after, and then it eventually turned into 4Kids TV.
Right. And yeah, there's a whole lot of weirdness with 4Kids TV. Kind of like the last holdout of Saturday morning cartoons.
On network television, yeah.
Yeah. But Turtles Forever is weird because I don't remember seeing this like even airing on TV.
I knew about it. I had DVR'd it. I showed it to you.
You showed it to me. Yeah, because like it was one of those things where, I think like the, 2005 show was mostly over by the time this premiered, and
Yeah.
I kind of just by weirdness of 2003 show being rebranded as like a different show. And
Yeah,
then, like,
the back end of the 2003 show got unfortunately odd. Like, they held back the real fifth season. They turned it into Fast Forward, which was then turned into Back to the Sewer. And then in between that, they aired the Lost season.
yeah.
Like, that must have been so confusing to anyone that didn't know what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, so I kind of just dropped off of this show until like you told me like, oh no, there's like a crossover. I was like, what? With like the original like show?
Yeah.
Can they do that?
And, yeah, apparently they could. The only thing
Yeah.
they couldn't do is use the music, which the 2012 show was able to use. And unfortunately, because 4Kids was a non-union operation, we couldn't get the original voice actors, which is especially a shame because James Avery was still alive.
Yeah.
And by the time they got around to actually using the original cartoon Turtles in the 2012 show, he had passed away.
Yeah, and for the most part, the sound alikes are mostly pretty good. Leo is a little bit like, that's the one where I'm like,
Yeah, ever since that big explosion, New York just hasn't been the same.
I know that voice. You're not Leonardo.
That was the most jarringly off.
Yeah.
Mikey also off.
We'll take 4 large pizzas with sauerkraut, tuna fish, pretzels, and jelly beans.
Donnie sounds okay occasionally.
Come to think of it, everything's been looking a little different lately.
Raph is not too bad.
Now that's what I call a ninja vanish.
I feel like Donatello and Raphael get the most lines out of the original Ninja Turtles. I think Mikey hardly talks.
He talks a bit more in the beginning, and he kind of gets quieter.
Yeah.
I think they gave more lines to Donnie and Raph just because they were able to get people that kind of sounded like them.
Yeah.
He always got a couple of lines, but the Splinter wasn't too bad.
Take this moment to nourish your body and soul as you prepare for the challenge that lies ahead of you.
Even the Shredder wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
How does a minor battle with those annoying turtles cause the engines to... What the devil?
The Shredder, it was close enough. Like,
Krang was okay, but
yeah.
he couldn't do like the weird noise that Krang would make as good.
And now you struggle to defeat these primitive creatures.
yeah, only that one guy really seems to do it right.
Yeah. Like he would kind of like say a full sentence normally and then just do the noise where like the original Krang would be talking and that noise would like happen kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
So, but
We find out the 87 Shredder was up to his usual shenanigans, and there he was fighting the Turtles, but then a snafu happened that sent the Technodrome and the Turtles hurtling into the world of the 2003 show,
yes.
where they fight for a bit, and then they decide they need help, and Shredder recruits his 2003 counterpart, who's a genocidal madman.
Those who are not with me are against me. I will finish you first. You have no honor. I fight to win. Like the phoenix, I have risen from the ashes. And into my fire, you shall fall.
Who's competent, which they do
Lethal.
say. Which they do say.
Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah. 87 Shredder got increasingly dumb.
Yeah.
He was pretty dumb by the middle of the show.
I think it's interesting that like most of the 2003 Turtles like are just like so like we can't even with these like weird jokey turtles except for Michelangelo.
Initially.
Yeah, but then even he after a while was just like, you guys can't take anything seriously.
Yeah, because like, shit's starting to hit the fan, and he's like, guys, come on.
Yeah. I guess, I don't remember in the 2003 show, but this is like kind of like the first instance of like mutagen, I think. Really.
Outside of like what turned the Turtles and Splinter and Leatherhead into what they are,
Yeah.
they didn't really do too much with mutants. There was some underground mutants. I don't really know how they were created. I know they were created by Shredder and the Foot, but I think the source of their mutation was different from the Turtles.
Right. they turned Hun into, like, I guess 2003's version of Slash.
He was going to be called Slash and everything, but they kind of, like, changed their minds on that. Because
Okay.
when 2003 Shredder, he also creates a mutant army. Two of the mutants are Tokon and Razor.
Right.
I mean, there's the only familiar ones we get, but it was kind of cool that they did that.
It was cool.
They're just there. They don't really do much, but it's kind of neat to see what they would look like in that style.
They're mostly, like, cameos. I mean, there's a few cameos. Like, you can see Irma in a shot when they go to, like, the 87 world.
I mean, every background character in the 87 world is a cameo of something from the show. Even, like, a paradox of Human Bebop and Rocksteady.
Oh, wow.
There's even she's in the background, but I'm pretty sure the gun-toting old lady from the pilot's there.
It's kind of interesting because, the 2003 Shredder shows up. He immediately, like, takes over Shredder and Krang's operation. Kind of, it's just like, this is, like, extremely advanced technology that I can use.
It's being wasted on these morons who bicker like an old married couple.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much what they became by the end of the show.
Yeah, pretty much.
They literally were just like a sitcom mom and dad, and Bebop and Rocksteady were like their kids. Literally, I'm pretty sure there was a line at once like, oh, we're going to get grounded.
It's kind of funny that, like, 2003 Shredder just is like, he doesn't even, like, bother with, like, classic Shredder and Krang yet. Like, he's just like, Bebop, Rocksteady, you're okay. You can work for me. And, like, Bebop and Rocksteady are just, like, okay with working for him. They're like, okay, I guess he's, like, the stronger, scarier version of Shredder. So, yeah, we'll work for him. He's the new boss now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. He makes, like, upgraded foot soldiers that look pretty cool. Makes an upgraded suit that more or less looks the same as he usually does. He just has, like,
bit bulkier.
Yeah.
Still, nothing looks better than, like, his original suit from, like, the first season.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he just looks awesome in general. 2003 Shredder. He's, like, scary and cool, and you're just like, oh, snap.
Yeah, one thing that was a little different is, like, when we see him just outside the suit and he's just the Utrom, he just talks in his normal scary Shredder voice, which I'm pretty sure he never really did before that.
Okay.
He usually just had, like, a more, like, higher-pitched version of that voice. But for this, they were just like, I guess to just emphasize the difference between the two Shredders, like, nah, he's got to have the scary voice the entire time.
Yeah.
Because even as an Utrom, he beats the crap out of Shredder and Krang.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's interesting, like, that this even happened, and there's a lot of, like, things that they bring up in this, like, the whole Raphael, like, talking to the camera.
Oh
and,
my
like,
God,
everything just stopping.
That is the best running joke in the entire movie. And they do it perfectly. They do it 3 times, and each time involves Hun.
Yeah.
And he just gets increasingly befuddled to the point where he just flips out and starts going like,
Why do you keep doing that? Who are you talking to? There's no one there!
Yeah.
I love that. Because Raphael was more of the fourth wall breaker. Everyone broke the fourth wall in the original cartoon. But I think he did it a little bit more, but to have, like, that acknowledgement of, like, they know they're in a cartoon to a degree, but everyone else is like, well, what's happening? What is he doing?
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because, like, there's, like, little moments, too, like, when, like, Splinter shows up and, like, Leonardo calls him father, and, like, the, classic Turtles are like, father.
Because they never called their Splinter that.
Yeah.
He was just their sensei, their teacher. They never called them their father. I don't even think that version of Splinter ever called them my sons. I think he just called them my turtles and my students, my pupils.
Yeah.
Like, they did not have even though he did technically raise them, he did not regard them as his kids in that version, which is oddly, because that's, like, the only version that's like that.
Yeah.
Because, like, every other version of Splinter is like, my sons, my sons. And usually, you only ever hear them say sensei or whatever. But I like when every once in a while you hear them say father.
Yeah.
Like, because he's their dad. He raised them, damn it.
Yeah.
He's their rat dad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the newer versions, they just straight up call him dad.
Like, yeah.
So, it's good. Like, I like the 03 Turtles have the interaction with, like, the classic Splinter. It's almost like, classic Splinter's just like, wow, they're so respectful and stuff. Like, compared to my sons who just eat jelly bean pizza. And
I do appreciate the fact that even though they kind of went a little too goofy with the Turtles, they knew that, like, no, Splinter was never goofy. Not really. He was he's pretty much straight-laced in that show. So they treated him like that. I do get a kick out of when they eventually end up in the 87 world. The 87 turtles like, hold on, we gotta go save April first.
Yeah. Just like random food monsters.
Why not? There was a lot of weird stuff in that show sometimes.
Yeah. You know, classic April. Her voice sounds pretty good. Like, it almost sounds like the original lady that did the voice. She's just like, I'm gonna get a Peabody Award for some, like, turtle. I forgot if they said, like, what's with the yellow jumpsuit, or you like a plumber or something? Or
something like that.
Yeah.
Donatello 03 comments on that. He asks her if she worked at a car wash.
yeah, something like that, yeah.
Because it's like, what are you wearing? She's wearing a yellow jumpsuit and she's a news reporter. She's like, are you an auto mechanic? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah. It's fun. But I guess...
I like the escalation of the plot because 03 Shredder, he gets a hold of the Technodrome, he ponders the possibility of multiple dimensions and realizing, like, I could conquer the multiverse. And he has the computer show him everything. And then to his horror, his absolute horror, across the multiverse are, as he puts it, scores of Ninja Turtles that will always be there to thwart him. And it breaks his brain. And he's just like, I have to destroy every Ninja Turtle everywhere. I have to do it. These freaking turtles. I can't with these turtles.
Yeah.
So he kidnaps Splinter, manages to capture both teams. I do appreciate when they attack the 03 Turtles' lair, they have like a weird tracking device with a nose. That's actually from the show. That's a real thing. That's not something they made up for this. And he scans their DNA to find their source dimension, which he calls Turtle Prime, which he goes to destroy, which then creates like literally ripping off Crisis on Infinite Earth as the world slowly gets erased. Everything fades to white. Though it's much more emphasized because it looks like they're being like erased like a drawing.
Yeah.
Because like they become like an outline and then nothing.
Yeah. It's pretty cool that the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show up in this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like,
and they're like hardcore.
They're very much the issue one. We don't really have much defining characteristics. Prototype turtles. We're basically just these Frank Miller parody, dark uber, just ninja guys.
Yeah, they even have like the narration.
Yeah.
And everything.
I do love that they just kind of wipe the floor with the other two teams of turtles. They literally just run through them in like a second. It's kind of great.
Because they're the OG. We even see the OG Shredder show up briefly too.
And just like the OG Shredder, he goes out like a punk.
Yeah. But, you know, we get the final battle.
Which is just escalates in ridiculousness. I just love that the half the dialogue of the Mirage Turtles they're just from the comic. Like they call Shredder out the exact same way they call Shredder out in the comic.
Shredder! We are here!
Shredder, face us!
Shredder! Do you fear us?
And it's cool. And Shredder, because he has the technology he stole from the Technodrome, becomes gigantic.
Yeah.
I do wish that maybe when Krang went giant, that it'd been nice if he got a few blows in before getting punked out.
Yeah. Shredder's just like, no.
Mine actually works.
Yeah.
And then it's like the one flaw outside of like I wish the original voices were in this. It's like, all right, you kind of have you kind of take a little few too many shots at the 87 Turtles, more than necessary.
Yeah,
but it does feed into like Raph having kind of an arc with the other turtles where Splinter yells at him for belittling the other turtles and he ends up saving their lives and they're like, thank you. He's like, okay, please stop hugging me.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like, you know, the original Turtles, or I guess the 87 Turtles, do have a little bit of like, oh no, we can like get serious when it matters too. Like, you know, they're like willing to like be heroes and stuff.
Yeah.
But like...
Though I'll also admit that sometimes the 87 Turtles would just be like, there's an episode where Splinter sent them out on patrol and then they said, oh, there's a monster movie marathon. And they just went and watched movies all night while the villains did villainous things. And then sometimes they would get tripped up by the stupidest things. Like they had a fight with Bebop and Rocksteady, who then, I don't know, knocked over some coins or whatever. The turtles slipped on some coins and then Bebop and Rocksteady ran away. And I just remember sitting there watching that and being like, Are you kidding me? They got tripped up by coins?
Yeah. But I don't know. The big battle is cool. They beat Shredder, of course. And
Though, did they beat Shredder or did Bebop and Rocksteady beat
That's
Shredder?
true.
I'm not gonna lie. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that they killed the Shredder by accident.
Yeah. Because classic, the Technodrome was made from the old cartoons. So, of course, the giant laser is just powered by, like, a regular plug.
And Bebop and Rocksteady first knock it out by accident and then plug it back in at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
There's two versions of this movie. There's the original version that premiered on TV and that was mostly only available. It's the only one that they have released on DVD here in the US. It's the only one that I think is, if it's on streaming, it's the only one that's on streaming. So I know the 03 show is on Paramount Plus. I don't know if Turtles Forever is part of it. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked.
I would assume it is, just because if you can get this.
Yeah, I mean,
Turtles
like I
Forever.
said, it probably is. I just haven't paid attention to that because I prefer to watch the full version,
Yeah.
which you can find on YouTube, or you do what I did, you import the DVD, and there's a bit more story beats that kind of get cut, a few more little moments, a couple character beats, and then just like a really awesome moment at the end with Shredder as he's crushing the Mirage Turtles, realizes that he'll erase himself, and then says, "You know what? Screw it."
Yeah.
And just like he is completely lost it at that point, and he's happy to die if it means if he's won, if he's destroyed all the Ninja Turtles across the multiverse.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, with the multiverse, we backtrack to when like Shredder is yelling at the Turtles about the multiverse. For probably the first time in a superhero movie, we see a bunch of little portal windows open up, and we see the multiverse of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Literally referred to at one point as the Turtleverse, like 4 or 5 years before Spider-Verse was a thing.
Yeah, and for the most part, it's like actual like incarnations, like
Yeah.
live action versions.
Yeah, that was so cool that we get to see the live action one, the 2007 movie, the Dreamwave comic that was very short lived,
Yeah.
the superhero universe, which we saw in like a couple times.
Yeah, the Turtles Mackay, I think, are even in there.
Yeah,
too.
the anime turtles,
Yeah.
the Archie turtles, and just the various Mirage artists contributing pieces.
Yeah.
It's like a really cool moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, as far as I know, that's like the first time that's ever happened. And we've seen it so many times since then, in like the Flash show, the Flash movie that made everybody mad.
Yeah.
Like seriously, people were really mad about that moment. Like,
They sure were.
So mad. But this was like, as far as I know, the first time we've seen that outside of like a comic book.
Yeah.
Like this movie owes a lot to like Christ's on Infinite Earths, which it very much ripped off.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, not long after this movie, Justice League Crisis on Two Earths came out, which had a similar villain plot with Owlman trying to destroy Earth Prime,
Yeah.
which would then destroy everything.
Exactly. And I think like the ending of the movie is pretty good too, because like we get the turtles going back to their home dimensions, and then it goes into like the real world with like the original creators making the comic.
Yeah.
And everything.
And then we just end on a shot of the cover, like
Yeah.
a sketch of the cover, and I'm like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like I love that shot. I love that ended there, and you don't see it when it broadcasts, but on like the DVD and stuff, they start playing like a song over the credits, and I was kind of shocked when I first saw that, because it was the first pass at a theme song that they released when they were first promoting the Fox box. They released a little promo thing from like Toys R Us and had like a disc with like showing like all the theme songs of all the new shows, and they had like a song for the Ninja Turtles. It wasn't the one that ultimately ended up being the theme song for the 03 show, but it's the song they put in the end credits of this, which I'm like, this is weird. The 03 show for me began with hearing that song, and now it ends hearing that song again. So weird.
That is weird. Overall, though, it's really good. It's interesting because as the movie goes on, the two versions of the Turtles kind of swap catchphrases.
Yeah.
Like the old school ones say "Turtle Power," and then what are the new ones?
It's
say?
Ninja Time.
It's Ninja Time. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was
Yeah.
never a fan of that. That didn't start being a thing until Fast Forward.
Right.
One cool thing, I remember reading this at the time when this movie came out, that for the 87 characters, they apparently used, like, instead of a black outline, they used a brown outline to make them seem like older, like from like that they look like an older cartoon. And it kind of works. Like, they look great.
Yeah.
The 87 characters all look like they stepped out of that original cartoon. Like, I love that the 2012 87 crossovers have the original voices, save for James Avery, rest in peace. But whenever we see them in 2D, they don't look good.
Yeah, they're like new like way of doing like cartoons.
Yeah, they don't look like they came from the original cartoon.
No.
Like these, like they don't have the voices, but they look the way they're supposed to look.
Yeah.
Which is something I always appreciated.
Yeah, it's a shame they don't have the voices. It's a shame that they don't use any of the music from like the original show, but it is what it is. And
yeah, unfortunate. Yeah.
And it's kind of like a weird miracle that this happened. I guess like the thinking at the time was like, since the Ninja Turtles were like being sold to like Viacom, it was like, well, this could be like the last thing that's good, and then Viacom could like release their Ninja Turtles and tank the franchise, and then it's just like on a shelf forever.
Well, hasn't quite happened yet. Not for lack of trying on their part.
Well, those live action movies are pretty weird.
And Rise of the TMNT, whether you love it or not, kind of crashed and burned.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with Mutant Mayhem.
No interest.
The next.
I have no interest.
Next thing.
Before we finish up, I remember when the first time, like outside of like a couple of little cameos, that the 87 Turtles properly crossed over with the 2012 Turtles. It was like a single episode thing. And it was literally the same story as this, but done like at like fast pace, because it was done in like 20 minutes.
Huh.
Because it's like just Krang is like threatening like the multiverse or whatever. They even travel to the Prime Turtle universe, though it's depicted as like motion comics instead of like just like regular animation.
Okay.
But the idea of like it's beat for beat kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like it at the time. I liked hearing like the turtle voices interacting. That was kind of fun, but their second team up was a lot better.
Yeah.
Especially when it was just like 87 Shredder and Krang needing a new Bebop and Rocksteady and hiring the 2012 Bebop and Rocksteady. Like that was more fun.
Yeah.
Like it was a different story. It wasn't like a lesser version of a more fun story, even if it had the proper voices.
Yeah. And 2012 Bebop and Rocksteady are pretty fun.
Yeah. They're weird, but they're interesting.
Yeah. They're like they're different, but they're like a fun type of different.
Yeah.
Rocksteady's Russian for some reason.
Yeah. And Bebop is voiced by that JB Smoove guy, whatever his name is.
That guy just has such a noticeable voice that you're like, oh, hey, I love this guy.
Yeah, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah. He also plays Poison Ivy's plant, Frank.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And he was one of Peter Parker's teachers in a couple of Spider-Man movies.
Oh, yeah, it's true. But...
And, rewatching this is a little bittersweet because it's like, I miss the 03 show because it's kind of feels like this show's been swept under the rug.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that they've actually released the entire series on DVD now. I was honestly shocked when it was announced. Yeah, I was like, holy crap, really? All right, I'll take it.
It's a shame that they didn't do a crossover with the 03 Turtles and the 2012 Turtles, because that would have been kind of different.
They wouldn't have clashed as much, honestly.
They wouldn't have, but I do feel like the 2003 Turtles are pretty I don't know, they're really good at being ninjas compared to a lot of the other turtles. The 2012 Turtles are good too, but I don't know, they seem like a lot older than the other turtles in general.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't know, they have cool Batman eyes. They're all I don't know if they're all gigantic, but sometimes they feel like they're gigantic.
But then you see them against other characters and you're like, no, they're still the size that they're supposed to be. They're still teenagers.
Yeah. I guess this is the first iteration where the turtles did look slightly different from each other too. Because they had different skin tones and
they have
stuff.
Different skin tones.
Different eye shapes too.
Yeah, I remember as far back as even the early seasons, they all had slightly different shades. Leo and Raph had the more triangular Batman eyes, while Donnie and Mikey had rounder ones.
Yeah.
They also kind of, it's not in this, but in the Back to the Sewer season, they kind of aped the body differences of the 2007 movie, where Raph's a little bigger, Mikey's a little shorter, Donnie's a little slimmer, but that was only in that season. Yeah. That was also the season where they actually had pupils. It was weird.
I don't think I've ever seen that season where they have pupils. I cannot imagine it.
It was okay, but honestly, those first 5 seasons were like so much better.
Yeah.
Especially like going back and watching like some of the ninja stuff, because I was kind of skimming through some stuff, and I'm like, damn, this show was good.
Yeah, it was good. And it was like good, and it was like in an unexpected place where you're like, the Fox box.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, I think if it aired on maybe a different network, maybe it would have gotten a bit more attention. I mean, it lasted a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah.
So it's not, can't.
Well received, there nothing against the Fox box. It was like fine at the time, but every time you think of that, it's just like, oh yeah, here's like a bunch of like, shows from Japan that we're gonna like ruin. I mean, for the most part, we're gonna like change all the music for all these shows because I don't know. There's a Kirby anime. In the Japanese version, it has the music from the games. Not in the American version for some reason.
I mean, credit where credit's due. The voice they picked for Eggman in Sonic X is still the voice of Eggman.
He's great. I have nothing bad to say about Sonic X.
I have one thing bad to say.
Even though they did not play Live and Learn when Sonic and Super Shadow and Shadow goes supersonic, and in the Japanese version they do.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Huh. Well, you know what? That's what fan edits are for.
Yep. It's like, come on. Why do you have to change all the music? Is it really that more expensive to have the music?
Admittedly, I never really watched too much else on the Foxbox / 4Kids TV.
Yeah.
I was mostly just there to watch this. I was just like so happy to have a new Ninja Turtle cartoon.
I watched this and most of the Sonic X.
I tried a little bit of it, lost interest pretty quick.
Yeah. I don't know. Sonic X was like the popular lead into this show. Because I remember this show was like kind of like, Saturday morning cartoons. And oddly enough, like, it was weird because like you would always think like that prime spot on Saturday morning was like that 9 a.m. slot. But like for this show, I believe it was on like 11 a.m.
I don't remember.
Yeah. I remember it being like one of the later shows. And I was like, okay, that's weird.
When this show was airing, I had figured out how to program a VCR.
Oh,
so at
nice.
a certain point, I didn't have to wake up. I just woke up. It's done recording. Play.
Nice.
Like, before I had a DVR, then I could just DVR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But
If you want to see what the turtle equivalent of a multiverse crossover movie is, it's Turtles Forever.
yeah.
Honestly, I'd recommend watching the 03 show.
Yes. It's extremely good.
Just don't expect to see a lot of, especially if you're like one of those people who's like sick of like, oh, nostalgia bait, blah, blah, blah. The 03 show, outside of like adapting stuff from the comics, stayed pretty far away from anything from the 87 cartoon until Turtles Forever.
Yes.
There was no Bebop, no Rocksteady, really technically no Krang.
Yeah.
I mean, there was Utroms, and briefly there was an Utrom named Krang as a joke, but that was it.
Okay. I mean, new characters like Bishop.
Yes,
and
Hun.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Turtles Forever is great. You should go watch it. And I guess that's the Out of Touch podcast for this week.
Cowabunga.
It's ninja time! Turn